The Lancaster was the best of its day.
I feel bloody lucky that we survived.
The whole thing was about teamwork. I didn't know it at the time, but I was joining the best crew in the Air Force.
Hello, I'm journalist Helen Fospero, and it's a privilege to bring you this week's Convex Conversation. I'm in Horsham in West Sussex to meet a Lancaster Bomber veteran who took part in some of the most infamous missions of World War II, including Dresden as a navigator and bomb aimer. Jack Dark is 101. He joined the RAF in 1942 when he was just 18 and became part of the elite Pathfinder Force, credited with turning the tide of the war, attacking the heart of Nazi Germany and inspiring fear in Hitler's senior command. The Pathfinder Force was also formed in 1942 at the direct request of the Air Ministry after devastating losses in the air. Made up of ordinary men and women, many were barely out of their teens. Their work massively increased the Allies' bombing success by accurately dropping flares from their Lancaster in the cover of darkness to illuminate the targets for the next round of aircraft. Jack's incredible story came to my attention when I watched Guy Martin's Lost World War II Bomber on Channel 4. Guy was part of a remarkable Dutch salvage operation to retrieve what's left of the Pathfinder bomber ED-603 from the bottom of Lake Isselmeer in the Netherlands.
It will take one of the most complex aircraft recovery missions ever attempted to reach the wreck of ED-603. With every nut, bolt, crane, barge and sheet of metal being transported miles out into the Isselmeer to the crash site.
All 7 crewmen were killed when it was shot down by a German night fighter in 1943, but the bodies of 3 were never found. Guy interviewed Jack as part of the programme. His first-hand experiences on Lancaster missions brought the role of the heroic Pathfinders and their dangerous raids to life. He's taken part in lots of interviews and helped on a recent feature film starring Charles Dance called Lancaster Above and Beyond, joining the stars on the red carpet at the premiere. Jack, it was quite a long introduction, but it is an honour to meet you, sir. How are you?
I'm very fit. My only problem is a little bit of stagger when I get up for about a minute or two. So if I stay careful...
Commemorated forever.
Well, you're looking fantastic to me. You are very much in demand at the minute for documentaries and films.
It will take one of the most complex aircraft recovery missions ever attempted to reach the wreck of ED-603. With every nut, bolt, crane, barge and sheet of metal being transported miles out into the Isselmeer to the crash site. Exactly how that site was located and identified in such a vast body of water was down to a bit of luck, combined with the skills of this man, historian Johan Grass, owner of the Fort Veldhuis Air War Museum.
Hello.
Alan Johan.
How are you?
Yeah, welcome, mate.
In 1996, a Dutch fishing trawler snagged its nets on something. When they pulled up the net, they got the surprise of their lives. It contained this, a complete Rolls-Royce Merlin engine.
That's the first engine salvaged from the wreck.
Bloody hell. Member of your crew, weren't you, at 101? And you joined the RAF, Jack, when you were just 18. I mean, you were just a nipper. Yeah. How did that come about?
I'd done 3 years night school. In those days, you wouldn't get it now, but in those days you were able to go to night school, and very few aircrew were accepted for pilot, navigator, bomb aimer. That was the 3 senior roles of the plane, and I got accepted, of course. I think those 3 years at night school made a great difference.
What were you studying at night school, Jack?
I did maths and that sort of thing.
As an 18-year-old lad, you'd never flown in an aeroplane, had you?
Before.
No. So what did you think when you saw the mighty Lancaster for the first time?
Since the war, I've seen Lancasters, and they seem to be bigger now than they were in those days.
I'm sure they do.
But they do seem bigger.
And you didn't get much training, did you, Jack? There wasn't much training, was there?
No. Once I came back as a navigator from South Africa, I was on operations about 3 months after that, starting operations. It was a long time ago.
It was such a long time ago. Did you want to be a pilot when you first joined the RAF?
Yes. I think 9 out of 10 of us didn't want to be pilots, but I was disappointed. I was made a navigator, and I went straight to a nav school. That helped, of course.
But navigator was a very key role too, wasn't it?
Yes.
So did you fly as a navigator in the Lancasters before they started the Pathfinder Force?
Yes.
And what was that like in those early days of you joining the RAF and you being on
I've been
missions?
told that the actual bomb fall was only about 5 miles from target. And I couldn't accept that, but they say that's what happened. But once I was transferred to Pathfinder Force, we were given an extra badge and one promotion. I ended up as a flight lieutenant, which was quite good because I left school at 14.
Gosh, that's incredible. Can you paint a picture, Jack? Because it's very difficult for me to understand. I didn't grow up during a world war. What was it like flying in a Lancaster on a combat mission? Can you paint a picture for me?
Well, to start with, I always thought I would come back. I don't know why, but I always thought, right, I'll be coming back. And I did. But it was a little different. Obviously navigating in a plane like on operations, but we weren't made straight away. I went to Silverstone and we flew Wellingtons. Then we moved on to Wigsley, 4-engine planes. Then we moved on again to Lancaster's 4-engine planes, and I stayed with 4 engines for the rest of my career with the RAF.
I can't imagine what it must have been like on those 4-engine planes when you were on your missions. How many crewmen? What was the atmosphere like, Jack, when you knew you were on a mission?
I think about 1 o'clock in the afternoon we were told, right, briefing at 4 o'clock, that sort of thing. We were given pretty good build-up of what we were going to do. I was fortunate. Before I was pathfinding, we took off and the pilot swung onto the grass. I don't know why, but he did. And we missed the control tower by a matter of feet. And he had to decide quickly whether we took off or shut down. And he decided to take off, and we took off, fortunately.
I bet you weren't expecting the danger to be on the runway like that.
No. The only occasion it happened, and as it hasn't happened, that night we had a spare wireless operator flying with us because of the wireless. It was sick, he'd gone sick. He said afterwards, I'll never fly with you lot again, because he thought we were like that always. And the only time it ever happened.
You did have a few things happen though, Jack. Isn't it true that a bomb went off and bounced you out of your bed when you were asleep?
Yes. Lancaster had gone off on a training trip, about 5 hours, and another Lancaster was taking off 5 hours later, and I was still in my bed when they both collided at Silverstone. And the whole 14 were killed. No survivors at all.
Oh, my goodness. How awful. How did you cope with, in those days, the loss of comrades?
I think you took it as a matter of course, somehow. I don't think you were affected too much, but you knew it was going to happen. My pilot and I, he was the only other commission member, and we spent quite a lot of time together. As I said, he went back to Australia and he ended up as governor.
And you picked each other and you had a strong bond with your crew, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I think the whole crew, you were never made to fly, but you were a volunteer. I even saw a chap, he dropped a little small bomb, training. It fell and he was badly injured. But it was only a tiny bomb training.
Jack, why was the Pathfinder Force started? Were we doing quite badly at that stage in the war?
We were doing badly. We were missing the target by a matter of miles. And the new Pathfinder Force CO was group captain. I think he was behind everything we did. Because we used to get to the target as pathfinding a couple of minutes before the main force. Might be 500 coming in. I was quite pleased to get out quickly. I never went round twice. A lot of crews weren't happy with their bombing, so they said we'll go around again. And it never happened to me, fortunately.
Well, I wonder whether perhaps, Jack, that might be why you're still here today. Sometimes a gut feeling is to be followed. So what made the Pathfinder Force different in terms of you using flares and highlighting the targets? How was it different?
I think we were so accurate compared with the rest of the crews. We were marked, of course. I can remember coming back the next morning. You go into the bombing section and you see all the crews were around the picture, and there's a piece of cotton wool to their target. You weren't very happy if you were in one of the further ones out. Your target was usually very accurate. I think my logbook shows 100 and 150 yards, that sort of thing.
So you were super accurate.
Yeah.
So is that the role of a bomb aimer, to drop the flares to highlight the targets? Yes. So when you were doing that particular role, Jack, what's it like in the plane? Where are you? Are you lying down? Where are you looking?
Yes, usually when I was main force, I was lying down by the bomb sight in the nose of the plane. But when I got pathfinding, I got upstairs and I was using the radar and that sort of thing.
And you had some access to some new technology in those days in terms of the radar. Was it called H2S? H2S.
Yeah.
And how did that transform your accuracy?
Well, that made it very accurate because I haven't got my logbook here, but that was my crew.
It's a fantastic photograph there, a beautiful black and white photograph of you all in your flying gear.
Yeah. And that,
you don't really look that
taken
different.
When I went back after the war.
Was it?
Recently.
Wow.
Very recently.
Oh, this recent picture. Yeah. Oh, this picture's a beautiful picture. And where are you on that photograph?
In the tail of the plane.
In the tail of the plane?
The
wow.
pilot's behind me and the air gunner in front of me, the rear gunner.
That must have brought back so many memories, Jack. Can you give us a sense, when you were there and you were doing your bomb aiming role, what were the sounds and what did it feel like? Because I'm guessing there were lots of other aircraft in the skies as well.
Yeah.
Sounds and smells, and I really struggle to imagine it, Jack. It's I've watched movies, but you were there. What thoughts went through your mind? Can you remember what it was like?
I always thought I would come back. I think that was a wish a lot of us had. And you felt you'd done something good if you got very close to the target.
I think before the Pathfinders, only 5% of bombs were hitting their targets. And by 1945, 95% of the bombs were dropped within 3 miles of the target.
Yeah.
The Pathfinders made a huge difference, didn't they, to the war effort?
Yes. The new CO was very good too.
I think it's lovely, Jack, that you always thought that you would come back.
Yes,
and I think
definitely that was definite.
I think life expectancy on the Pathfinder units was 12 missions.
Yes.
And the crew of ED-603, the aircraft that's just been brought up in the Netherlands, had flown 40 missions. Did you ever, as a crew, talk about the dangers or the risks, or did you worry the night you set off? Did you think, oh gosh, this is quite dangerous?
My very first trip, my best friend was shot down the very, very, very first. And I would see his mother when I went home, and we would say, he'd be a prisoner of war, but he never was. They found the plane and the body and the crew. So the very first operation never came back.
That's so hard. The Guy Martin documentary, which you recently helped on, about recovering ED603, apparently the aircraft was limping home 80 odd years ago, and then it was shot down over a Dutch lake. What did you make of the extraordinary operation to not only recover the aircraft, but also to give those 3 servicemen, lay them to rest properly?
I can't believe they did it, because it cost a hell of a lot of money to fence it and drain it.
The 1,100 square kilometres of the IJsselmeer, where Lancaster ED603 crashed, is a warplane graveyard. In World War II, it was on a favoured route for Allied bombers heading to Germany. More than 6,000 aircraft were shot down over the Netherlands during the war, and over 200 of them still lie undiscovered in the IJsselmeer.
Important for the families, I think.
And when I was flying, I knew a Pathfinder had been shot down because when it hit the ground, the flares, different colour, went off. I thought, well, that's a Pathfinder, that's a Pathfinder. That would happen.
Could you see out, Jack, from your aircraft?
Yes.
You could. So were the skies just full?
Yeah, but mainly pathfinding, we were first. We would find the target and mark it, and then the main force would come in and bomb it. I think air bombing was so good on main force, they transferred us to pathfinding.
Guy Martin asked you on the documentary if you were good at what you did, and you said yes, didn't you, Jack? What did you do with the flares, like on the way back? Did you drop those?
There was an occasion when I'd always go and have a look through the little peephole to see if there's anything hanging up. And one occasion, there was a canister of flares, and we were going back over the North Sea, so I thought we would let them go. We don't want any trouble. So we let them go over the North Sea, and when we got back, other crews would talk about fighter flares in the North Sea.
I gather you flew over your family's farm at one point.
Yes. When we came back from the early morning bombing raid, it was daylight, and we couldn't land in Norfolk because it was foggy. So they sent us to Hampshire, and my pilot called me up and said, we were very close to your house going to Hampshire. I got down in the nose, directed him in, and the first time we went round, not a soul. The second time we went there, the second time, the whole family were waving.
What did they think to what you did, Jack, in those days?
Well, what I'm surprised about is the fact my father and mother never tried to persuade me not to fly.
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought they would, but they didn't.
Were they very proud of you?
I think so.
I'm sure. What were the most famous missions that you were part of, Jack?
Hamburg, Munich, Dortmund Ems. There were 3.
And Dresden as well. Were you involved in Dresden? Yeah.
And I did a target in the Baltic, but I've still got my logbook. And
you've got some maps, haven't you, and all that kind of thing?
I've got about 20 target maps. You were given a target map before the raid to take with you, and they've all these 20 target maps have been over Germany.
When you think, Jack, it was like 80 odd years ago. Your memory for this is very good, but I suppose you'd never forget the experiences really that you had, because they were so extraordinary, weren't they?
Oh, you're right.
Can you remember anything of the Dresden raid, which I think was 1945, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was getting towards the end of the war, probably about 2 months before. We were hit on several occasions with anti-aircraft fire, but nothing did any real damage, fortunately. I was a Navigator Bomb Aimer as well, so that was unusual. You were normally a Navigator or a Bomb Aimer. I did both.
How come you did both, Jack?
Well, during training, it just happened that I did a lot of bombing.
And did they only give you about 10 hours of training? Was that right?
No, we did about I suppose about 50 hours.
50 hours. That still doesn't sound a lot to me.
Yeah. A training trip would be about 4 or 5 hours, and you probably did about 15 or 20 before you went on operation.
I think for the Guy Martin documentary, he showed you the radar, the H2S.
Actually,
And I don't think you'd seen one since 1945. What did you think when you saw it again?
well, I used it again, and it worked.
Did it?
Yeah. My main navigational aid was H2S. You could see this water, land, and buildings. And you're able to set a circle on your bomb site, the forward travel your bombs. So when they came down the target, and when they crossed the circle, that's when you released. So hopefully you got it right.
And then you had the debrief afterwards to work out how well that mission had gone.
Yes. A very quick one in the evening before you went to bed, but the next day you would be down in the intelligence. Every plane had a piece of cotton wool to the target where their bombs fell.
And you flew at night with the Pathfinders.
Yes. I only flew in the day one trip. All the rest were night trips. We used to take off about 3:30, 4 o'clock, about 5 o'clock, and you could pick up the North Sea quite easily on your H2S. But once you got into Germany, that's become very difficult because all you could pick up was the occasional town. That's where the difficulty was.
So did you have a pre-flight briefing, Jack, before you set off?
Pilot, navigator, and bomb aimer were in a pre-flight briefing before we went to the meal. They always gave us a meal.
And what was the atmosphere like on board with your fellow crewmen? Did you chat on the way to a mission, or was it very quiet?
The pilot wouldn't stand any chatter. If you heard anything on the intercom, it was important. Time was very important with everything you did, really, because you aimed to get to the target about 2 minutes before the rest of the main force. So you marked a target quickly and then got away. And I never went round twice. Some crews did 2 or 3 trips to get on one target.
And as you were flying away, Jack, what could you see in the sky? Could you see lots of other aircraft?
Yes, you could see that, and you could see the fires that started.
And anti-aircraft as well. Could you see anything like anti-aircraft stuff?
I've got some pictures with all around the plane. I don't know how they missed you, but they did.
Your memory is extraordinary, Jack. It really is extraordinary when you think it was such a long time ago.
Yeah.
But do you have any overriding memories of that time? When you think back to those days in 42 and 43, what really stands out for you?
I never flew with the other crews, but my crew were very disciplined. They always used to take note of everything. I think we were more careful than some.
Did you take anything special with you, Jack? When the lost Pathfinder Lancaster came up, they found beautiful cigarette cases and things like that. Did you have anything with you in your flying suit, or anything that special that meant something that perhaps kept you safe in all those times?
I was always a non-smoker, so that didn't help. But no, I don't think we took anything special. As you said, it's 80 years ago, isn't it?
It is. Do you enjoy the fact that film companies and documentary makers like to come and talk to you?
Well, it's strange, but it happened. But it didn't happen until I was in the 90s.
In the 90s. What are your recollections, Jack, of the end of the war and how you felt at that point when you knew? I
didn't lie on the day the war finished. Through the day before, we were told, it was the CO announced it. I was at Silverstone. I never moved on. I stayed there for the rest of 18 months, 2 years. So I say, navigating for the crew captain.
What were you doing in those days?
Still Lancasters.
Still Lancasters, but after the war, you still carried on flying the Lancaster.
Yeah.
How much does that aeroplane mean to you, Jack?
A lot, because the other alternative was the Halifax. Losses were not good on Halifax. I think Halifaxes were a difference. They provided the difference.
The Lancaster, to me, looks a mighty aircraft, strong.
Yeah.
If you'd never flown before, Jack, when you joined the RAF, I just can't imagine what you thought when you first went on board the Lancaster.
Yeah. Well, of course, we were built up through the Wellingtons. We did our training on Wellingtons. The losses were even not good on training. We lost 2 crews completely over top of Silverstone.
Silverstone in those days wasn't associated with racing, was it? Was it part of the RAF?
Yes.
When you were at Silverstone? Yeah. And do you remember VE Day and where you were on VE Day?
Well, I know I was in the squadron, but that's about all I do. I think everyone was talking about it and getting to the squadron, but I don't think we did anything special.
You don't remember any big celebrations or anything like that?
Because I was nearly a teetotaler, not quite.
Teetotaler and no smoking. I'm impressed in those days, Jack.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the film Lancaster Above and Beyond, which stars Charles Dance. That came out a couple of years ago, but you were interviewed for that, weren't you?
Yes. I can't remember, I can remember wartime. I can't remember that film very much.
And I'm guessing you were just sharing some of your experiences we've been doing today.
Yeah. What
did you do, Jack, when you left the RAF?
I went straight back to my old council, the Horsham District Council, in promotion. I was interviewed and I went back to a cashier's job, actually.
And how did you adapt to Civvy Street after the life that you'd lived in the RAF? Was it a relief, or did you miss the comradeship from the military?
I think you miss it, obviously. But as soon as the war finished, we were made for the Far East. And we had the inoculations and everything already, what they call Tiger Force. We were going to the Far East.
And what were you doing in the Far East?
Japanese War.
Oh, my goodness.
It hadn't finished then.
I didn't realise you were involved in that. I thought it was all over for you, Jack, once.
No. The Japanese War was still going when our war finished in England. Ours finished in the spring. The Japanese War didn't finish in the summer, or August. They would give us the injections. Everything was all ready to go when the war finished, so we didn't go.
So you didn't go?
No.
When you sit here in your lovely house in Horsham and you reflect on those times, do you feel a great sense of pride, Jack, that you were able to help Britain in such a powerful way in those days?
In a way, I felt it never happened.
Did you?
Yeah. I don't know why, but I think you've got a lot of the... You seem to have got a lot of the notes down.
I think we have got a lot of the notes down. Are there any other stories that spring to mind that perhaps I haven't asked you, Jack? Yeah. Any scrapes you found yourself in, or any near misses?
I think with a bombing raid, you're going to have near misses all the time.
And your aircraft was never seriously hit?
No, it was hit, but not seriously, no. Anti-aircraft only. Never got the fighter, fortunately.
Well, you're 101, Jack, now.
Yes.
You look amazing. Your mind is in great shape. Your eyes are sparkling. Yeah. Shall we go to the pub for a nice lunch?
I think so, yeah.
Shall we? So what are we going to have then at the Nuthurst?
I don't know.
What do you fancy today?
I quite like a ploughman's lunch.
Do you?
Yeah.
Come on then, let's go to the Nuthurst for a ploughman's. You've been listening to the wonderful Jack Dark, in my eyes, a true hero, who took part in some of the most infamous bombing missions in World War II as part of the elite Pathfinder Force. Jack was featured on Guy Martin's Lost World War II bomber documentary. It is a remarkable story, beautifully told, and you can find it on More 4 because it's only just come out. Download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to yours. I'll be back next week with another great guest. Join me then.